In this video, I'm going to be talking about the typical features found in a trailer, and more in particular, thriller film trailers. So I'll be looking at, I've decided to look at several different thriller film trailers and pick out the features from each of these, just a couple of features each, to see what links in, what's more common in thriller films, and what features I should be looking to use in my thriller film. I'll be looking at a variety of trailers to see what they have in common and what works well within the trailer and what doesn't work so well. From doing this, I hope to find out techniques that famous film trailers use, as well as how they can affect a trailer overall, and then use them in my trailer to attract people to come and see my new thriller film, which I've obviously decided to call Whispers of Yesterday. So I'm hoping from this research into these different films, I'll be able to pick out the best bits of their features that they use and then incorporate them into my thriller film. So the first thriller film I decided to look into was the thriller film trailer for Seven. Seven's about S-E-7-E-N. Two detectives, a rookie and a veteran, hunt a serial killer who uses the 7 deadly sins as his modus operandi. So, that's just the base of the storyline. So, Seven uses some unique and repeated techniques in its trailer. Firstly, it uses a non-diegetic voiceover, which creates a very intimidating and intense atmosphere, which I was surprised about. I did not expect Seven to use a voiceover. It just didn't seem like the type of film that would need one. But and obviously, the voiceover describes the story to the audience and creates an intense and dark, deep atmosphere in the meantime because of the voice. The voice is very deep. And I do want to further on from this because this has inspired me to use a voiceover in my trailer, because I thought Seven, being a very serious film, it wouldn't use a voiceover, but it does, and it's not actually the characters, it's a separate voiceover. And though I probably won't use I'll probably use my protagonist to do the voiceover, it really does emphasise what's going on in the film, and it describes the storyline well. So I feel that what's something I struggled on last year in is to in a group we had this great big storyline planned, but we were only allowed to show the first 2 minutes of the storyline. And because we had this such in-depth film, which we could have carried on, but because we could only fit it into the 2 minutes, it didn't really make sense, and it needed the rest of the film to explain what that was. Now, obviously, the institution said we can only show the trailer, and I feel that I will struggle with the same type of overcomplicating the storyline and not being able to show it in the light that I want to. So I believe that by using a voiceover, I'll be able to tackle this again, but I'll be able to describe what's happening in my thriller film and what is going on to the audience through the use of a voiceover, whether this be the main protagonist or maybe even the antagonist, maybe even the princess character, the niece. It all depends on the situation, but it's just such a good way to describe a storyline that I really think it has inspired me to use in my thriller film trailer. However, there is also diegetic dialogue from the characters in the film, which is good because it allows the audience to start to connect with the characters in the film before the full film's release, meaning they will be likely to go and see it and revisit these characters they have already met. So by having this kind of diegetic dialogue and having people interact kind of with each other and start to know their morals, and maybe not like their deep dark secrets, but you start to know that they're fighting to save their daughter, like in Taken, or it gets the audience kind of behind them. It gives them if they know the protagonist's motive for what he's doing, similar to the antagonist, the characters automatically become much more interesting, especially if you develop that motive throughout the film. So I believe that by having a bit of dialogue between characters and getting some chemistry in there and maybe showing a bit of a hiccup or something like that is a really good way to engage the audience into the film and just overall make them excited to see it. So say if you have like a false hero, you could show them in one scene being kind to the protagonist and kind of getting the audience safe with that guy, and then a bit later on you could see him maybe in a different light when he's actually attacking the protagonist. That's just an idea off the top of my head, but I feel that could be quite good to use. It also uses very dark lighting in the trailer, which creates a very intense and suspenseful atmosphere for the film, as everything is quite hard to see and creates mystery in the storyline. This will also get the audience excited for the film, as many questions will be left from the trailer, so they want to come and watch the full film and find out more about this new film at the time. So we'll see, the main thing is that they don't show everything in the trailer, they only show certain aspects, and they deliberately show parts of the film which are going to make people wonder what's going on and question maybe the protagonist's decisions or something along those lines. And from that, people start to speculate, make up theories, question, try and analyse the trailer. And with all this hype going around, you get people on YouTube now analysing trailers, and that's just going to spread it out to more and more people who want to go and see the film. So it's a great way to get people in questioning your trailer, because obviously, as I said, it will get on YouTube, it will be spread all across social media, and more than your target audience will find out about it. It will become this huge phenomenon that everyone's talking about. And that was the thriller film movie trailer analysis for Seven. The next film trailer I decided to analyse was kind of along the same sort of lines as Seven, and it is, of course, the film from 2000, Memento. A man juggles searching for his wife's murderer, and keeping a short-term memory loss from being an obstacle. Simple basis of a storyline. That already will get people interested in the story, but let's read on and find out what features it uses. Memento firstly has a good length for its trailer, not being too long but having enough time to showcase what the film has to offer without being too long and boring its audience. The trailer length is about 2 minutes 20, which is the one I watched anyway, which is a good time, as I feel the trailer should be between 2 minutes and 2 minutes and a half, and that's what a thriller film trailer that's what the length should be. Now, I obviously had to put a lot of thought behind the length of the trailer, because originally I was going to go for quite a short trailer, but then you find out how much you want to add into the storyline, and it just keeps building and building, and the time gets to about 2 minutes and a half. Now, I don't think 2 minutes and a half is that bad for a length, maybe a little bit shorter. The question is, can you still fit everything in, all the action, and still keep that same intensity without losing making confusion in the audience? So yes, they do cut in dialogue, but you can't cut out a main chunk of a dialogue, because he could be saying one thing, she replies to another thing, and then it automatically doesn't make sense because I haven't shown that middle part of the diegetic dialogue. So I need to be careful with that. The Memento trailer didn't feel like it dragged, is why I put this down. When watching the trailer, I felt engaged and I felt like I was enjoying the trailer. So I believe that a film trailer can be about 2 minutes 30, as long as it creates, it gets the audience excited. It's all well and good saying, I want to make it 2 minutes 30, but if it's not interesting and doesn't really show much about the storyline, what's the point? You need to make sure it's interesting and that audiences do not create this kind of boredom within the trailer. They need to be engaged throughout the whole 2 minutes 30, and if you don't feel like you can do that, maybe I should narrow it down to 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute 50. But I do believe that with the dialogue I have and the intense parts I have at the end, it could be used to my advantage, having it slightly longer, because then people will get to see more of my trailer, and then obviously the more they see, without spoiling it, the more questions they'll have to ask. Why did he do this in this part? Why did he do that in that part? It will actually get the audience talking, maybe even more so than a short trailer that only leaves a few questions. Memento uses a lot of character development in its trailer, as you see a lot of the protagonist, which means the audience will grow to like that character and feel comfortable with him, making them want to revisit him in the final film. So obviously, if the audience feel comfortable with the main character, because he's shown a lot, it's a good thing, because if they grow to like that protagonist, they should grow to like the film. So that's why I've planned to use a lot of my protagonists in near enough every shot of my film, because I feel that if used correctly, it could be a massive influence on people coming back to see the film. The quick editing is also used, which creates a very intense atmosphere in the trailer and keeps audiences on the edges of their seats when watching the trailer. This works really well also, because it allows the trailer to show many parts of the film, getting the audience excited to see the final film. So obviously the more quick edits you show, they get to see more parts of the film, and maybe they only see a split second of an explosion of someone's face. And it creates intensity, it creates atmosphere, and it's overall going to get people excited to see this movie, which I need to take massive inspiration from. The next film I decided to look at was Shutter Island. I'll get straight into the plot synopsis of this film. In 1954, a US Marshal investigates the disappearance of a murderess who escapes from a hospital for the critically insane. So that already, storyline more so than Memento, creates massive tension and intensity just from the plot synopsis. And that's something I could get inspiration from itself. If I can get people to read the plot synopsis and realise like how deadly this film is, and they get like intense kind of vibes from the plot synopsis, I think you've had a great idea for a thriller film. This film has a very intense trailer and even takes aspects from the horror film genre, which is the first thing I picked up. A lot of the camera work and lighting used looks like the horror film genre. Now this isn't a horror film, this is a thriller film, but maybe it's connected. Also, I talk about lots about how thriller films can be incorporated into a lot of genres, such as the thriller action genre, psychological thriller, horror thriller, and this obviously is like a horror thriller, which I quite like, to be honest. Firstly, it starts at a slow pace, introducing the main characters and the overall plot of the film. It then continues to show more of the overarching theme of the film, which is the creepy storyline itself. So obviously it does show quite a lot of the characters just developing and then them talking about this island. It's not until about at least 30 seconds to a minute in that you actually see the island itself, I believe, from what I remember watching the trailer. So obviously that's a great thing to use, because the trailer has its own little bit of intensity. Because if you think that if they're talking about this island, people are going to think, what's it look like, what's it look like? And then they see the island, that first 30 seconds is going to be full of intensity, and especially if you start it off with a line such as, don't make me go back to that island, or something like that. They didn't use that line, but if they said something like that, people are going to think, what island? And if they're talking about it for about 30 seconds, people are really going to be engaged in the film. So that's something I really picked up on. As well as they do describe a lot of the storyline in it, but they don't use a voiceover, they do it via characters. Now, for something like this storyline, it's slightly easier. Talking about an island and what's on it is quite easier for the characters to talk about, whereas a storyline which I had for my thriller film, it's a little bit harder to do that. But it doesn't matter anyway, because they did it a great job, and it really does get the intensity going. It uses a lot of slow motion shots, which are good for showing areas in the film, as well as showing more characters and their reaction to things happening in the film when it gets the audience excited and interested to see what they are reacting to. And this is not always shown in a trailer, which creates an intense atmosphere for the viewers. So I said quite a lot there, so I'll explain it. The last bit about the slow motion reaction, they show people's reaction, maybe a shocked face or kind of crying and defending themselves. That all comes from, what I say, but you don't always see it. You don't always see what they're reacting to. And that makes it even more, because if you see someone crying or getting really upset, you do tend to get, a bit anxious. And that is exactly what this trailer does. As well as using slow motion shots for cool action shots, like any thriller film does, like explosions, running away, people chase scenes. Slow motion shots are always forever used in these type of thriller films. And I feel that it's not a bad thing at all. By a long shot, it's not a bad thing. In fact, I think it's quite a good thing, because then people tend to see get engaged with it, because it goes down to basics at this point. Because if something looks cool in slow motion, people are going to be like, whoa, that looks pretty cool, and then they're going to obviously want to go and see it for themselves. Another thing that it uses is a typical thing to see in a thriller film, which is very quick edits, like I said in Memento, together with again creates an intense atmosphere for the audience and creates confusion in a good way, as we also see shots of what is going on and lets us question and wonder what is going on, which pushes the audience to go and see the film. Because again, I talk about those questions. If you question yourself about what's going on in the thriller film, people are going to to see what's going on here, and then they're going to be more pushed. They're going to get the greater urge, with all the questions going on, they're going to get a greater urge to go and see the thriller film itself. So continuing to create these questions with the quick edits is a great marketing technique, because they're going to see small bits of the film, they're going to think, wow, that looks cool, I want to go and see that thriller film, which in this case obviously was Shutter Island, which did a great job with its trailer, creating lots of intensity and an all-around creepy atmosphere for the film itself. The next film I decided to look at was a film that I've never seen before, so this was quite an interesting one to analyse, because I got to see, like, for the trailer myself and how it reacted me, because I've never seen this film, so seeing this trailer was like seeing it when it first came out, because I've never actually really heard about this film. And this is The Butterfly Effect, The Butterfly Effect is the film I'm talking about. Evert Urban suffers blackouts during significant events of his life. As he grows up, he finds a way to remember these lost memories, and a supernatural way to alter his life by reading his journal. So obviously I found that really interesting when I first read that synopsis. The Butterfly Effect has a very complex storyline, which I noticed, compared to other films, in my opinion. This makes it very hard for the audience to follow, but the trailer does a good job sectioning the film so it does not become too much for the audience to take in, because something I found really hard when watching the trailer, I thought that there was too much going on. My brain couldn't really comprehend what was, happening at some points. But it did develop this structure where it was kind of like the happy moment in his life, the bit when his wife first breaks up with him, or when she dies, I think, going back in time, saving his wife, and then them being in prison. It was just cut into small little sections in this, 2 minute 20 trailer, which I thought was really, really helpful for me to follow. So it's a good idea if you do have this slightly, you could say, complex storyline. Putting it into sections could really help your audience. And for someone like me that tends to do overcate their I think about too much of the bigger picture rather than focusing on what I need to show. This could be quite helpful to me to put it into sections rather than just mushing all the film together and just in chronological order maybe. But then again, if you put it in chronological order, people may get bored. It may be good to change up the genre and put it in a different order. But it all depends. But overall, what I'm trying to say is that it was easy to navigate at the end. By doing this and sectioning the film, I could see what was going on, and the simple structure of the chronological order made the trailer more enjoyable for me, and made the storyline stand out to me even more than the plot synopsis, because the plot synopsis already has a very different storyline to most other thriller films. This trailer again uses non-diegetic voiceover, and uses 2 of them. Now, this is where it got a little bit strange, because it is clear what is going on, but at the same time, it could be quite hard to see which one was which at the start, but towards the end, it became clear, so it is a good idea. So the first is only used twice, so it makes an appearance at the start of the trailer and the end of the trailer, that's what made me confused. And it is a deep voice creating a dark atmosphere to start and end the trailer, which creates an intense atmosphere for the audience. And this was not the main character, this was just a random storyline, typical trailer voiceover, which is heard in quite a lot of trailers. It's just that deep, dark voice that just describes the overall kind of overarching plot of the film, rather than like the actual plot, like the details in the film and about the characters. It's just like, this character needs to go and do this before this happens, in a very dark, kind of creepy voiceover, which is a good thing to use, because it does create this kind of overarching kind of fear in the trailer, because you feel like, what's going to happen. You feel uneasy with that voice. That's what I'm trying to say. You feel uneasy with that voice, and that's why it stands out to me, and that's why I'll be interested to use it in my thriller film. The second voiceover is the main character describing what is going on in the film, which is good because it allows the audience to get familiar with the character himself, as well as finding out more about the storyline and what is going on in the film. This was the better voiceover to me. It was used quite a lot, and it was almost like they were taking parts of his voice from the film and putting them into the scenes, which it wasn't supposed to be in, which made the storyline much clearer to me. And it also made it feel much more personal because he was talking to us himself from the point of view of the character. So you got a lot more emotion in his voice. It's about, what's happened to his wife, what he needs to do, this crazy new technique he's found. And you kind of hear all the confusion and the fear in his voice. And overall, to me, that really made the voiceover that much better than the first deep, dark voiceover, because it made it more personalised to the film. And it also described the story, did a much better job as describing the storyline. So this worked really well. The next thriller film I decided to analyse was Inception. So Inception goes as follows. A thief who steals corporate secrets through the use of a dream-sharing technology is given the inverse task of planting an idea into the mind of a CEO. So again, all these trailers I've picked out, I've done a great job of describing their plot synopsis to get people involved, but we're focusing on the trailer here. Inception, like many other thriller films, entices its audience through the use of showing a lot of clips of action from the film, showing audiences what they can get excited for in the film and what special effects they have to make it unique and as different as possible. So Inception uses a lot of strange techniques, like people running on walls and running upside down. It looks very exciting. It also looks a bit nauseating, but mainly it looks exciting. You see people like running up on walls and on the ceiling and having a fight and falling on their side, and it just looks quite cool. It depends on it, but then again, that could be seen as the type of person you are. It could be seen as making you feel quite sick. When I think back to it, it makes me feel a bit queasy. But other people will think, wow, that looks awesome. So a thriller film, the features of a thriller film is trying to use something that no other thriller film has used before, is what I'm trying to say. It also could be it's also the same as using, like, if you use the same old thing in every single thriller film, that's why I'm looking at different ones, it could get quite boring. And as much as it is good to use the same features in a thriller film, it could become quite tedious for the audience to watch, and they could become quite, frankly, bored of the film or the trailer, because they could have seen it 100 times before. The horror film suffers more from this than the thriller film franchise. But overall, it could still become very repetitive for my audience. So that's why I want to make sure I have unique aspects in there, but still using some of the same features that some of these great trailers have used. This is a great thing to do, showing some action scenes as the audience can see what they can expect from the film without giving too much away. Something that Inception did well, much other thriller films use, is... So lots of other thriller films use this, but Inception just did it really well. You could say Inception well. Which is the use of loud, intense music. Though all thriller films and trailers use music, it really stood out to me in the trailer because it was very loud and added a lot of intensity to the trailer. So I had the volume on the same as I watched all of these trailers in a row on my laptop. And for some reason, even though it could be the quality of the trailer, whatever, but the Inception one was really loud, especially in the action sequences, and it really made me listen to it and kind of get the feel of the intensity that it was trying to show. So I feel that this actually works really well, and it highlighted to me how important music is in a good trailer, and how it can completely change the mood of any film through the use of good music. So it made me think that I need to put a lot of time into my music and kind of work on the volume of it in certain parts of the trailer. So yes, I want to use a voiceover, but put it loud in the parts where there's just more action, because it really does need to highlight what's going on, especially at the end. It can go raise up, and through like titles popping up on the screen, it needs to be loud. So the better the music, the more intense and memorable the music will be, and it will make the audiences remember the trailer. If it's very good and good music, it will make the audience remember the trailer, and they will mean that they are more likely to go out and see the film, which is what a good trailer is all about. Now, I know it's not the film I'm talking about, but something like Jurassic Park. The Jurassic Park theme is one of the most famous movie composed pieces of all time, or Jaws. and it really does make people remember the film. And if you could put one of like a great soundtrack like that into a trailer, then you could be onto something special. Now, obviously, they didn't use these music in the trailer, but if I can make my trailers music quite good and intense, that the fact that maybe they don't remember the music, but they remember the scene the music was used in. Like, oh, do you remember that bit with that explosion? The music was like, and like something like that. And again, it all relates back to audience questioning and talking about the film. Then I feel that the music is crucial, and it is a massive feature in a typical thriller film trailer. The final film I spoke about was a film franchise I've spoken about before, but this is a different film I chose to talk about this time, and it is The Dark Knight Rises this time. So 8 years after the Joker's reign of anxiety, The Dark Knight was, with the help of the enigmatic Selina, is forced for his imposed alliance to save Gotham City. Now on the edge of total annihilation from the brutal guerrilla terrorist Bane. So obviously this is quite an intense film, and it took quite a dark approach to Batman, like the Christopher Nolan trilogy did, but this one just seemed to be much more dark than the others in my opinion. So this film is being the third in a franchise. Not to mention Batman is one of the most famous characters on the earth, meant that they just did not have a lot of time to spend to like introduce a protagonist. It didn't really need to introduce its protagonist, much like Memento and stuff. It just didn't have to do that because Batman is such a famous character that everybody knows who he is. So if they spent the whole trailer setting up Batman, it wouldn't be much point. I mean, back in Batman Begins, they might have had to put a bit of thought behind it because this is a new Batman, someone new playing Batman. And they did need to introduce this kind of new Batman, but this time, it's the third in the film. We know who Batman is, we know what he's out to do. So this film got quite an easy way out of skipping this part. However, they did spend a lot of time setting up for the antagonist of the film, which of course was Bane. They show, which I think is really good, but I feel that you can't show too much of your antagonist. I've always thought that. I feel that if you keep your antagonist secret, then it looks good. I mean, not that, like Kong Skull Island next year, not that Kong is an antagonist, but something in like a monster movie, I feel like you should keep, like that type of antagonist secret. And in the latest, and they did it quite well in the first trailer, not showing too much of him, only half of his body. And in the latest trailer release, they showed like the whole flesh of his body and how tall he is and how big it is. And I feel like it ruins the suspense of the film. And I feel like you do get a much better job of not showing too much of your antagonist and showing him only briefly, or maybe even a dark light, so that people are interested to see what he is like, and that gives them a reason to go and see the full film. They show a lot of action clips, as well as a lot of the antagonists using quick cuts to get the audience excited for the film. So again, something I need to use is quick cuts. Every thriller film does this. It gets the audience excited for the film, and they can see more of what's going on in the film, but at the same time they can relate. They see lots of what's going on, but they don't see that much, if you know what I mean. So they see different areas of the film and different reactions, but what are they reacting to? What are they fighting against? It's all that kind of, you could say, jazz. Sorry. Find out what the contrapuntal music makes the trailer much more interesting, as it does not fit with what is happening on screen, and will interest the audience to find out what they are using the music and what it has to do with the storyline of the film. This trailer does not show an awful lot of the full film and only picks out a few clips to the audience to get excited about without spoiling the best and parts and the crucial aspects of the storyline. So the main thing I want to go back to is the use of contrapuntal music. It has the part of the film where the little boy is singing and Bane blows up the whole football stadium. The contrapuntal music sometimes can create quite an eerie atmosphere. So there's two different types. You can have this kind of funky music, a bit like Reservoir Dogs, where you're getting like a torture scene, or you're going to have this massive explosion when you expect to see lots of explosion sounds, and you hear kind of like a whiny voice singing, you could say. And that, to me, creates massive intensity, because you get to see, it just doesn't fit with what you're seeing on the screen, and it kind of creates a more eerie atmosphere for the film, which obviously will make, it's what I was talking about earlier with Inception. It has that kind of contrapuntal soundtrack, makes it, people remember that part of the film. And then obviously, if they remember that part of the film, they'll be like, oh, do you remember that part? Well, I wonder what the full length of that is like. And they'll want to go back and see it. And though I do not plan to use contrapuntal music in my thriller film trailer, as I think that I won't be able to pull it off as well as these big thriller film trailers do, it has inspired me to at least maybe even attempt it, just to see what kind of reaction or creation I get out of it. Overall, from this video, I have gathered many techniques that famous thriller films and other genres use, which will greatly help me in my film trailer. And I will be filming, when I am filming, I can use these techniques to make my thriller film the best it can be. There's a lot more there that I can try and experiment with to see what I can create in the long run. This also helped me to find typical conventions of a thriller film and allow me to use typical conventions in my thriller film trailer, which will help my audience establish what genre my trailer is. And obviously I will be doing a video in a couple of posts' time about typical conventions in a thriller film trailer, so stay tuned for that. I'm looking forward to editing my trailer to show some of these techniques in my trailer and make the trailer look as best as it can. So there's many techniques I could try out with when I'm filming, when I'm editing, when I'm creating music. There's a lot for me to try out, and from this video I'm just very excited to see what I can create and how I can make the trailer for Whispers of Yesterday different to anything else people have seen before, yet still keeping the core techniques, features and conventions of a thriller film.